Welcome back to the Let's Talk Baseball podcast. I am one of your hosts, Michael Herrera, joined by my good friend Jacob Payne. We got a lot to talk about today, some interesting stuff that I know me and Jacob are excited to get into the nitty gritty of. The Dodgers, our team, what they've been doing this offseason. Can they still compete and run for the West? We got to talk some Mets. They've the amount of money they've spent is absolutely insane. And it's gonna be crazy to see what they do this season. And we're gonna talk about that. And maybe for lucky, some Pirates talk. They brought home the kid, Andrew McCutchen. It's not a farewell tour. He's trying to bring them back a championship. Can they compete in the next few years? We'll talk about it. Jacob, how you doing? How you been, my man?
Doing good, doing good. Been keeping track of the progress during this spring training. Excited for the games to get started this upcoming week. It's going to be a lot of fun to see who comes out and who performs in spring training.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I don't know if you saw Jason Hayward, that dinger out Tony Gonsolin. He's a guy that the Dodgers, one of their first moves, they're like, what? And he might be a guy that gets a starting center field spot. So let's talk about it. Um, Big thing with the Dodgers this offseason was, are they gonna chase Judge? Are they gonna chase DeGrom? Are they gonna chase Trey Turner, Dansby, Bogarts, even Correa? All the news of the big superstars, and they get none of them. And it's like, whoa. Because looking at the past couple off seasons, you're getting guys like Trevor Bauer, Freddie Freeman, those superstar players who can come out and put up MVP seasons for you. Their biggest addition, superstar wise, maybe, was Noah Syndergaard. And I'm not saying anything Noah Syndergaard, but he ain't no Jacob DeGrom. They brought in Noah Syndergaard, Alex Reyes, David Peralta, JD Martinez, JP Fireeisen, who's gonna be out for most of the season, but I really like that trade, and I hope he can return for some point. Miggy Rowe, who they extended for a 2-year deal, I think, or 1 year, and they're looking into the guy Zach Britton, put up a decent few numbers in the bullpen with the Yankees. But again, you're looking at a lot of subtractions. You're losing Cody Bellinger. Even with his struggles, he was still the great guy to have out there. You're losing Trey Turner. You're losing Justin Turner. You're losing Tyler Anderson. You're losing a lot of guys. Andrew Heaney. You're losing these guys that came out and had such great seasons for you last year. And I know as a Dodger, I was like, as a Dodger fan, I was like, whoa, like what's happening? But I know that I feel like I can trust the front office enough to be like, okay, if they're feeling these guys, they're feeling these guys, and they think that they can go win a championship with these guys, and I have that faith in them, and I hope these guys can come out and play 162. But what do you think? One, Jacob, the subtractions or the additions?
Yeah, so I think to start off with, knowing Andrew Friedman, he's always got a plan, right? He's always got something up his sleeve. No matter what offseason we're talking about here, he always made a move that blew people's minds. Obviously, during either you're talking off seasons, trade deadlines, whatever, there was always something that just like jumped out of you. Obviously, looking back the past couple years, we get a Yu Darvish signing, we get a Max Scherzer, Trey Turner double trade that absolutely blew everybody out of the water. I mean, it's just you're always looking for what big move are they going to do this time? And with the amount of um big star free agents that were out and about this offseason, you had to think, you had to say in the back of your mind, wow, who are they going to go for? And I think the big candidate was Judge, right? I think everybody was like, man, I think this can happen. I mean, myself included. I thought if he was going to go after one big person with the struggles that we had been having in the outfield minus Mookie Betts, I could have definitely seen Friedman going out and getting ourselves an Aaron Judge, and that didn't happen. And obviously, we saw there was plenty of subtractions and not a lot of big additions. I mean, if you look at who we lost, Cody Bellinger, a fan favorite, a defensive uh, powerhouse when it comes to just you can throw him out in center field and you can know for a fact that anything hit out there is getting caught, or bare minimum staying in front of him. His range, his athletic ability, to make those plays right at the wall. Um, it doesn't matter if his bat ever slipped out of place. His glove was dependable. I mean, he is a Gold Glove center fielder, and that is not an understatement. Um, Justin Turner, another fan favorite, absolute Dodgers legend. Um, will I can see him getting his jersey retired someday down the line. I mean, for what he did for the Dodgers, for how long he did it, absolutely incredible. I mean, this guy was, let's be honest, he was a nobody before the Dodgers. His stats said so. Uh, and the Dodgers took a chance on him, and man, did that pay off. Even in his later years, you know, consistency, clutch. I mean, those are just some of the few words that I could name off of when thinking of Justin Turner. And um, I think I'm not the only person who thinks that they thought that they would see Justin Turner's last baseball game in a Dodgers uniform. Sad to see him go, but you know what? I hope that he has a success over in Boston. At least, at the DH spot, you figure you'll probably be seeing him DH majority of the time. Maybe a third base here and there to give Devers a break. But I look forward to seeing him succeed over there. We talk about Trey Turner, another big a big loss, consistent as ever, as anyone in terms of batting, will give you 300 batting average seasons just about every year he'll play. I know that for a fact. Speed, he was huge when it came to speed, and I think before Trey Turner, we never really saw the Dodgers steal too much. After Trey Turner, we saw we saw how speed came into play, not only stealing bags, but just turning just your general old singles into doubles, turning your doubles into triples, turning your first to thirds into first to homes. You know what I mean? Really just kind of showed what speed can do, and I think that kind of influenced the entire team, not just Trey Turner, but the likes of Gavin Lux. The likes of Trace Thompson, the likes of Cody Bellinger, you just saw that speed kind of tick up. Um, and then the loss in the arms. What I was saying going into this offseason was do whatever you want to do with the position players, make some additions, don't make some additions, get rid of some people, don't get rid of some people. Who cares? You need to keep the arms. The starting rotation was sick. The bullpen was I would say the best in baseball, and a lot of subtractions there. You got Tyler Anderson, you got Andrew Heaney, you got Chris Martin, you got uh I why can't I remember
Canley. Right?
Canley.
Yeah.
You got Canley. Um you got some big arms that were huge for us down the stretch. um that you allowed to let go. And I mean, on the one hand, yeah, I understand you can't get everybody, but man, was Chris Martin and Tommy Canley huge for us down the stretch towards the end of the season. They were huge. Tyler Anderson had a career year as an all-star pick. I mean, Andrew Heaney, granted, he had some injuries here and there, but when he was in and he was on form, he looked great. I mean, I really hated to see those subtractions from the pitching aspect, but you got to look at our additions, and I got to say, there's some sleepers in there. I mean, you look at Noah Syndergaard. Um, he's a Cy Young worthy pitcher. Granted, he's had a couple of iffy years. Um, he absolutely is a Cy Young caliber pitcher, and if we take anything that the Dodgers pitching coaches have done with the amount of crap they've been given in the past seasons, they turn that into gold. Absolute gold. So I am very excited to see what happens with Noah Syndergaard and Alex Reyes for that matter. Um, Alex Reyes, I don't know if you remember. I imagine you do the walk off home run with Chris Taylor for the wild card game. Um, I rewatch that, every so often just to get those feelings back in. And so I feel like he's got a lot of potential with the Dodgers pitching coaches. JD Martinez, David Peralta, Miguel Rojas, a lot of sleeper additions, I feel like, because a lot of people I feel like they just fly under the radar. JD Martinez might be the exception to that rule,
Yeah.
but Miguel Rojas and David Peralta, I don't think was on anybody's radar going into this offseason. So it'll be interesting to see. And then you got to figure again, like I brought up at the beginning, um, Friedman's got a plan. I think that plan is Shohei Ohtani. This trade deadline, this offseason, I think it's Shohei Ohtani. I think that's why the you saw a lot of big subtractions and some small additions. I think that's what he's going for. And we'll have to wait and see. But I think that is the overall goal, is to sign Shohei Ohtani to a deal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everybody wants the big guy, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, arguably, he's gonna have one of the best careers ever in baseball, no matter where he ends up. But one of the reasons you got to bring him in, and they're gonna be able to bring him in, one, you have to have the package to do it. The Dodgers have the prospects and some of the major league talent to do that. Number two, you gotta have that payroll. You gotta have the amount of money to bring him in. Like if you're like let's say you're an Orioles fan and you're hoping that you're going to trade for Shohei Ohtani. I'm not saying nothing can't happen. You guys got the best farm system in baseball, but your managers just came out and said that y'all overachieved in 2022, which I thought was interesting. So I don't think they're gonna spend well over their budget for a long time, and I get kind of sad because I love the Orioles as a team. They're my sleeper team for this year. More on that later, but yeah, they've said that they're gonna go for Shohei. Possibly the first $500 million deal. I think he's well enough deserved it by now. And you're looking at these deals, like even the Miggy Rowe extension, it's 5 mil. JD Martinez 10 mil. Noah Syndergaard 13 mil. David Peralta 6 mil. Guys that are getting lower prices than you would see from the Dodgers in the past years. Obviously Freddie Freeman's at 23. Mookie got that big 32 million a year, and it's the long term extensions, right? And you got to figure how many of these guys. Okay, you're looking at these guys. If they can give you good seasons, great. Especially Noah Syndergaard. If let's say they do get an Ohtani, which would be awesome. I'd love that. Where does Syndergaard end up? Because not only do you have Bueller coming back, you have Bobby Miller in the leagues. You got guys that are going to come out and have a full season, and I'm excited to see how that plays off this next offseason. But yeah, they've come out and said Ohtani's the goal. Whether that meant not going after Judge, losing Trey Turner, losing out on guys like that, and they did. And a lot of fans were like, "Whoa, what's happening? Like, are we not competing anymore?" Of course, you gotta compare, right? The off seasons. You got the Dodgers off season. They didn't really get a superstar. Kind of got some, you could say sleeper, but I really like these moves. Then you got the Padres getting Xander Bogaerts, Michael Wacha, extending Darvish, Matt Carpenter, Nelson Cruz, a bunch of guys who are going to come out there and play, and they're gonna give them a run for the money, which I think is good for baseball, good for the NL West. We're gonna see a very, very, very tight race to the very end of that year. I think it's really gonna come down to game 162, and I'm excited for that. But I mean, the Padres, they lost a lot too. I mean, you're looking at subtractions like Josh Bell, Brennan Jury, some guys that obviously helped them in their run. But it's really interesting. Like you're looking at these two off seasons, and you kind of want to say the Padres is better, but if you're looking at who the Padres have been, who the Dodgers have been, like what on what scale do you think who did better? I feel like there might be an obvious answer for this, but it's a good topic to debate.
Yeah, I would say obviously with star power, with the names that they have, with the amount of news that's buzzing around them, I think the Padres are going to go into the season as the slight favorites um for the NL West. And I'll be honest, I understand it. Their pitching rotation is great. Their bullpen is still pretty good. The star power they have in the field, especially when Tatis is back in there, it's unquestionable. You have you have a solid middle infield in Tatis and and Bogarts, and hell, you can even throw in Ah Kim in there. You figure when Tatis does come back, is he going to come back as a shortstop, or are they going to leave Kim in there? Because defensively, that kid's a wizard. And so you might see Ha Kim, you might see Tatis. Either way, the other one's going to go in the outfield. Um, and I think you could flip a coin and fill those positions. I don't really think it matters. I think Asan Kim is slightly a better defensive player than Tatis, but then again, Tatis has an absolute hand cannon, and can probably throw anybody out from deep short, just as you know, as a Manny Machado would, which is your third baseman. So, um, I would say the Padres won the offseason, um, but I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people see it. A lot of people see the Dodgers offseason as a huge miss and a huge loss. And a lot of people see the Padres offseason as a huge win. And I think that's where they're basing off of their views, but I don't see the Dodgers offseason as a huge loss. I see it as an overall win. Now that is going to depend on how people perform. And I mean, same thing goes for the Padres. We thought that the last 2 seasons the Padres were going to be huge contenders with the Dodgers, and you know, for all intents and purposes, they weren't. Granted, obviously they did beat us in the wild card, um, or in the
Yeah.
divisional series this past year, and there's no understating they were the better team in that series. They just were. There's no
Yeah.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They were the
They
better
were.
team. Period. But that being said, during the season, we have absolutely dominated the Padres. We just have absolutely dominated them to the point where there really wasn't competition for that first place. At least not that we thought, not as much as we thought it would be. We thought it would be, tied down the stretch, really close, come down the last few games, and it just wasn't the case. Um, and it has to do with the fact of performance, right? We saw that the Dodgers, they showed up, they performed during the season. Padres not as much. And going into this season, I think it's a little bit reverse, where we imagine the Padres should perform a little bit higher than the Dodgers. And on paper, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. You don't have the star caliber on the immediate roster for the Dodgers that you do for the Padres. That's just a plain old fact. The difference is we've seen the Dodgers perform with these rosters where they have a couple of star players out and they have to fill in with guys like Trace Thompson, with guys like Miguel Roja or Vargas, with guys like Outman. We've seen them be able to perform with rosters that have some of these holes in them, and you can't say the same with the Padres. So there is that to take into consideration when you're thinking about the season going in this season.
I agree. I mean, definitely not as flashy. I mean, if you're comparing the lineups between this year and last year, it's like, whoa, really? Like, how can you afford to lose this much? But they're the Dodgers, and it's like if they weren't the Dodgers, you're looking at a very if you didn't know what their organization could do, you're looking like, okay, they're not competing, but you gotta still put them in that spot because of who they are, who they have been. I mean, if you're looking at a lineup of Max Muncy, Muncy at third, Vargas at second, Freeman at first, Smith at catching, Betts and right, that's always gonna be a dominant. I feel like you can always count on those guys. You got CT, you can count on them left. David Peralta, I like that little platoon. Shortstop, Gavin Lux, calling it. Gavin Lux, 2023 MVP, baby. I'm calling it right now. I'm really excited. That's going to be a big question to see how he plays at short. And before we close this out, I do want to talk about your opinions on Lux and how he will fit in that short and if he can hold that hold. But what, who do you think? is our center fielder by opening day? And what is one bold prediction for the 2023 season for the Dodgers?
I want to see Trace Thompson out there getting a full season in, a full season's work, and being our center fielder. With what I saw from him last season was outstanding. I mean, the kid came in and said he wanted to compete for his spot, and he did. And he came up. I mean, his batting stats weren't absolutely smashed out of the park, but damn, was he clutch. I mean, it when it felt like there was nothing left in the Dodgers tank, and we needed one big hit, he was the guy to do it. Especially down the stretch. I mean, there were several games that I can think of off the top of my head where it's late in the game, runners on, 2 outs, and Trace Thompson comes through, and gets the tying or go ahead RBI. And defensively, he seems like he's really starting to find it. Um, I know it can be awkward to uh, be an outfielder, especially if you're not necessarily used to training for outfield. Um, but I really think he could do it. I think he's got the range. I think you can get a Cody Bellinger-esque season from Trace Thompson um if you give him the
Opportunity.
the
Yeah, the
opportunity
chance.
to go out there and go and show what he's made of. I'd at least, at bare minimum, want to see him out there for the first like 50 games, 50,
I
60
agree.
games. Get him out there, see what he can do, see what he can produce. I think he's earned that chance from the last season. I know we've got guys like um, with the additions that we've made this offseason in Hayward, um, and guys like Vargas who could play outfield, Outman who could play outfield.
Peralta.
A lot of these prospects, Peralta, you could probably throw out there. Um, I know we've got those guys, and they've got to get in some work at some point too. They deserve it as well. But I think Trace Thompson has earned that first chance at being your center fielder. Um, I really think he's got the athletic ability, and I really think he can find himself in terms of the offense and really be a solid addition to this roster.
100% agree. I'm gonna give a bold prediction real quick. I do agree with Chase Thompson. Being the center fielder. I mean, of course, if Jason Hayward can bring it together somehow, for the struggles he's had with the Cubs, that'd be awesome. A very sleep, very like Andrew Heaney-esque signing where they're like, "Whoa, what are you doing? This guy was one of the worst players in baseball last year. Almost could have been an all-star if he stayed healthy through the rest of the season." But here's a bold prediction, and I know I said Gavin Lux 2023 MVP, which is a bold prediction in itself. But a guy who they've been linked to, who they have the prospects to get, not Shohei, who I think they're going to be very active for at the trade deadline, and will be our new center fielder. I am going to be excited to see Brian Reynolds in Dodger Blue. I'm calling it right now. I think they're going to get a deal done. I think Reynolds is going to have a great year. Think he might be a starter at the All-Star game. Obviously, I might be biased because I'm a Dodger fan, and I'm going to say that, but I hope that does happen because he's been a stud in the past, and they haven't linked to him. There's only a few teams that really have the pitching depth to go out there and trade for them because that's that the Pirates have expressed they wanted. Like if you're talking about, they said, okay, we want 2 to 3 good pitching prospects. It's the first three teams that come to mind: Dodgers, Marlins, Rangers. And I think if you're looking at who's more likely to get a deal done, I think it is the Dodgers, and I hope that that does happen.
That's interesting. I didn't think about Brian Reynolds, but um, that would be a huge signing. Here's the issue: if builds up he continues to build up his trade value, and puts up some astronomical numbers by trade deadline, that might make it a little bit tough because we would probably have to part with a Pepio or a Miller, or Stone, and I'm not sure the Dodgers want to do that. And I'll be honest, I don't think they should. Right now, with the way that Bobby Miller's looking, I think he could be the next it dude. He could be the next Walker Bueller, where you put him up there and he's got that swagger, he's got that confidence where he could come up and he can throw 101 at Shohei Ohtani right by him, like we saw last year.
Oh, that was
Um,
awesome. That was awesome. I saw
that's
that clip.
that's the kind of swagger we need from a young kid coming up. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to be humble to an extent, but you have to have the confidence to go up to against somebody like that and say, I got some stuff that you can't touch, and I know it, and I'm gonna show you. Um, and so I don't know that they want to get rid of at least in my eyes, I see Bobby Miller as that guy you can't part
Yeah.
ways with. Um, I feel like that's just gonna bite us in the ass down the road. That's a Jordan Alvarez esque
O'Neal Cruz trade.
losing where I think he's gonna be a stud.
Yeah.
I really think so. Um, Ryan Pepio, I can see being a trade piece. Um, I think he's come up a couple of times and he's shown a lot of promise, but at the same time, he's also shown um, that he has been struggling at the MLB level. Um, Towards the end of the season, when he got brought up, he was starting to do better. But I don't remember him going past like 4 innings without like
Yeah.
70
Yeah, a lot
pitches.
of command controls
A
or
lot,
issues.
a lot of pitch count issues. Gavin Stone, I don't remember seeing him a lot last season, if at all.
Yeah, no, he wasn't
Um,
called up.
but I think he's another one of those pieces who might go, but I would really like to see this season and either see him build up his trade value or see him build up his Dodger value and see him like a Bobby Miller where we say, man, that when this kid's ready, he's going to come up and he's going to light this place on fire. Um, and we have to keep those pieces in the wing because Clayton Kershaw, his age is only going up, his health is declining, and we're gonna see him not be in Dodger blue and possibly not be in baseball at
Oh,
some point within the next few years, and that's gonna
oh,
be a tough thing that we're gonna have to deal with.
oh.
But we have to have the personnel to fill his spot, and we have to rely on our own young pieces because that's what we've been doing for the past few years. If we look at guys like Dustin May, like Walker Bueller, like Julio Urias, you got to give your guys chances. You got
Yeah.
to let them. You got to let them work because you know what? Right now, those pieces that we've kept have been paying their dividends. They have been huge, huge, absolutely vital to our success. Um, a Tony Gonsolin, a Dustin May, Walker Bueller, a Julio Urias, they have all been vital, absolutely vital to our success in the past few years. So while I would love to see a Brian Reynolds trade, um, I think pitching will be tough to deal out because of those arms that we really want to keep. Like I said, Ryan Pepio might be on the chopping block, but I really hope
Yeah.
that Bobby Miller is not one of those
Yeah.
guys. Is not a part of one of those trade packages. In fact, I would even say the same thing with the Shohei Ohtani trade. I love the
Same.
idea. I would love to see him come to the Dodgers. I would not like to see Bobby Miller on that list of trade candidates. I think he's one of those guys who you say this guy's off the board. Anyone else we could talk about. Um, so we'll see. But that's an interesting prediction. I would love to see that come to fruition. But you got to remember
Yeah.
the big piece for during the trade deadline is Shohei Ohtani and whether or not Shohei Ohtani gets traded and does come to the Dodgers. If he doesn't, I think the Brian Reynolds trade would be very realistic. If he
Yeah.
does, I
Yeah.
would say that leaves us in a place where we aren't going to have as many
That
huge trade
pieces.
pieces to sign a Brian Reynolds.
Speaking of Shohei, speaking of kind of questionable prospect playing, speaking of big spending, let's go to the East Coast with my boy Stevie Cohen and his New York Metropolitans. The big headliner of the offseason, Will DeGrom stay? His health has always been an issue. Kind of saw him struggle in the last few starts, and no, he wanted that 6th year, and the Rangers gave it to him. A nice 185 5-year deal with a very interesting vesting option for that 6th year. And it's like they lose a lot of guys. They lost Taiwan Walker. They're like, holy crap, are the Mets just like not gonna Met anymore? Are they gonna really Met the offseason? Because of the fact that they've lost so many guys. And CV Cohen's like, no, 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 no. No, like, we're here to play. Give me Justin Verlander. Give me Kodai Senga. Give me Jose Quintana. You know what? While you're there, let me sprinkle a little bit of a 6-year re-signing of Brandon Nimmo. Bring in a guy like David Robertson. Extend a guy like Jeff McNeil. Bring in some catching depth. Bring in some pitching depth. Brooks Raley from that trade. Adam Ottavino, bringing him back. Tommy Pham even as a 4th outfielder. I mean, the list just goes on with these guys. All guys who performed at a high level, even with Kodai Senga, one of the top pitchers in the Japanese league last year. He was a guy that the Dodgers was looking at that I would have really loved. 75 mil for 5 years goes to the Mets. I think that was a really sleeper signing for them. And I did not expect him at all to go to the Mets. I thought it was going to come down to the Dodgers and the Padres. But Stevie Cohen said, no, no, no. Let's see what this guy can do. And a thing I saw like a lot across the offseason. Of course, Jacob deGrom got that big 185 contract. Stevie Cohen spent 187 on Jose Quintana, Justin Verlander, and Kodai Senga together to fix that rotation. Because if you don't sign those guys, you're looking at a rotation of Max Scherzer, David Peterson, Carlos Carrasco, who's still there, Joey Luesi. Sorry if I butchered that name. And what? Eliezer Hernandez? Like, I don't think that's gonna come out there and win you 100 games. But they made the moves that everyone expected them to make. They were linked to Judge at one point, and that was crazy. I was like, if that happens, I don't know. Could you
Don't
imagine it?
forget Correa.
And Correa almost had Correa almost had Correa, Lindor, McNeil, and Alonso across the infield. Was willing to spend that money on top of all of these guys, and it's just insane how Stevie Cohen was like, "Screw it, we're gonna go and spend." And obviously, as a baseball fan, you're like, "Oh my gosh, the Mets are they're just gonna do it. They're gonna run it." Are they? That is a question because we saw them run it for a while, and then the Braves came in and swooped that east. So big question because we're running out of time. One of the only questions I really want to big questions we're going to talk about: can the Mets, are these moves enough? Are these signing after signing after signing after tens of millions of even billions of dollars with an S? Will that finally be enough to get them to the World Series championship?
Well, let's start from the beginning, right? Obviously, this past year we saw the Mets come into the season. They were the big guns. They were the team to beat. They had the rotation of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, and they were supposed to absolutely light this baseball world on fire. And to be fair, they did for a decent part of the season, but they absolutely choked at the end of the season. Choked so much so that they didn't even win their division and win out first round of the playoffs. Just an absolute embarrassment on behalf of the Mets. And you know what? Steve Cohen went in the offseason, red faced, pants down, and said, I am going to spend every single dollar I possibly can to make that not happen again. And goddamn, did he do it. I mean, he is
Yeah.
spending so much money. You might as well double whatever he is signing somebody for because that's how much he's paying because of luxury tax. He is getting taxed dollar by dollar. For every dollar he spends, he's got to pay an extra dollar. So, I mean, it is just absolutely ridiculous. There was a point where this offseason I was just thinking, I mean, who are they not going to sign? Who are they not going to pay for at this point? Because they're spending upwards of $500 million this year, and we're still making additions. We're still talking towards the end of the free agency of adding Tommy Pham and adding Jose Quintana. I mean, these late signings are not small signings. They are huge additions. I mean, when your fourth arm is Jose Quintana, that is something special. You are brewing up something special there. Their rotation is looking great. I mean, assuming everybody stays healthy, you've got the duo of Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, two absolute ancient guys, but performing like they are in their prime.
Very, very
Justin
old. All
Verlander
those
coming
guys.
off of a career year of some sick sub-2 ERA for the season. Um, just absolutely devastating stuff he's got at the age he is, and Scherzer is looking like he's not really slowing down at all either. I mean, that dude's an animal. You got Kodai Senga coming in as your third arm, like you said, one of the best Japanese pitchers they've got over there. Um, Jose Quintana. I've been a fan of Jose Quintana for a while now, from the Pirates to the Cards. This guy's got some good stuff, and as your fourth arm is just, I mean, it's nothing short of something special. Um, he, like you said, they are not short on star power, and so should they come into this season absolutely guns blazing, winning 140 out of 162 games, yeah, with the amount of money they're spending, absolutely, 100% that should be the case. Are they? You know, it is the Mets.
It is.
And we have we
The
have to
Mets.
understand that there are a couple of franchises out there that are just cursed right now. Angels and Mets being two of them. Um, and so we'll see. But with the amount of money that they are spending, if they don't win 120 games and win the World Series, I think you have to at some point say enough is enough and begin a rebuild. I'm not saying they should do that this offseason. If they don't, I mean, unless they completely and utterly collapse. But if they don't win the World Series this year, they have to rebuild. They just do. Um, you're spending north of $550 million this year. If they don't win a World Series title, man, that is just that alone is a complete embarrassment.
If they don't win
Uh,
a World Series title this year, Manny Machado's going to New York. I guess, I mean, it's all you can say, and that's just incredible to
it's
think about.
wild, man. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do. Last one quick question. I think their over under was at like 94.5 on paper. Obviously over,
Over.
but over. That's your take. I agree. I
They
honestly
have
agree.
to be. Michael, they have to be. They are spending so much money. So much money. They have to be over. They have to be over 94 wins. Hell, they have to be over 100 wins. If they get anything south of 100 wins, that's a loss. That is a loss on their season. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah.
With how much they're spending, that is a loss if they get less than 100 wins.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Will the Mets met for what their like fifth season in a row? We're gonna find out, and I'm kind of rooting for them because I love the Mets. I love their energy. Love Edwin Diaz. Bring out the trumpets. Forgot they re-signed him to a 5-year, $100 million extension in the bullpen. So that's gonna be interesting. Thank you for joining us on this episode. Forgot to talk about the Bucks. We'll get them in. We'll get them in next episode. Also, next episode, some grazing over some final NL West topics. We got the Giants adding some catching depth, as you heard. Padres bringing Michael Waka, extend Darvish 42. How will that work out for them? We'll see. And the Phillies, they bring in a vet from Josh Harrison. How much can they get from him? They've made some a lot of great moves. Can they compete with the Mets and the Braves? We'll see. I'm Michael Herrera. This is Jacob Payne. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.